Nastia and Simon had been husband and wife for just 5 years, even though a solid decade separated them in age. They tied the knot the moment Nastia turned 20. 3 years into their marriage, they decided it was time to grow their little family and, as luck would have it, they welcomed twins, a boy and a girl. Simon was over the moon, deeply moved and endlessly thankful to Nastia for bringing such joy into their lives. Yet, while happiness filled their home, Nastia couldn't ignore the silent insecurities creeping in. Her body hadn't bounced back the way she'd hoped, and that lingering dissatisfaction cast a shadow over her self-image. Simon, ever the supportive partner, tried to soothe her worries. "Give it time, love," he'd say gently. "This is just temporary. You'll feel like yourself again soon." Wanting to help in every way possible, he didn't just offer words, he backed them up with action. He paid for massage therapy, signed her up for a gym membership, and arranged consultations with a nutritionist. Nastia was touched by his thoughtfulness. His steady encouragement gave her the push she needed to stick with her self-improvement goals. When the twins turned 3, Nastia felt it was time to rejoin the workforce. The routine of motherhood, beautiful as it was, had become a bit repetitive, and she longed to reclaim a part of her identity. After a heartfelt talk with Simon, she went back to her job. Before becoming a mom, she'd been a regular at the gym, so returning to her fitness routine seemed like the natural next step. On her first day back at the gym, the front desk staff told her that her usual trainer, Lana, was out sick and that someone would be stepping in temporarily. Nastia was slightly bummed. She and Lana had always worked well together, but her disappointment melted away the moment she met the substitute, a fit, driven trainer named Nate who clearly practiced what he preached. He greeted her with a friendly smile, introduced himself, and asked how she was feeling. They started training, and although the session went smoothly, Nastia couldn't get rid of the strange discomfort. At first, Nate didn't say or do anything like that. There was just something in the air that made her feel strangely agitated. To her surprise, she found that their companionship turned her on. That evening, there was some kind of mutual attraction between her and Simon. Their next session rolled around, and this time, Nate's behavior raised a few subtle red flags. He was a bit too hands-on, touching her waist during stretches, resting his hand a little too low now and then. She even caught him eyeing her from behind when he thought she wasn't looking. Meanwhile, Simon, clueless about the undercurrents, joked that all this working out was doing wonders for her, not just physically but emotionally too. He was just happy to see his wife so energized. Then one day, Simon casually asked if Lana had made it back from her break. Nastia explained that she hadn't heard from her. Supposedly Lana had broken her leg. That's when Simon mentioned he'd signed up at the same gym. He also warned Nastia, somewhat hesitantly, that he'd heard things about Nate, how the guy could get a little too familiar with his clients. Nastia nodded, thanked him for the heads up, and assured him she'd keep her eyes open from now on. During the next training session, Nastia couldn't help but think about Simon's words. Deep down, she was anticipating Nate to escalate his advances, but nothing happened. Nastia had almost dismissed her concerns until one day when Nate asked her to join him in his office to record measurements. While he was measuring the volumes, Nastia noticed him touching her chest, her thighs, and fixing her hair. Feeling uncomfortable, she couldn't resist and kissed him. Surprisingly, Nate didn't push her away and allowed it to happen. From that moment on, Nastia became more committed to her training sessions, impressing her husband Simon with her determination. Anna intentionally kept her continued training sessions with Nate a secret from her husband. She knew that if Simon found out, he would become angry and insist on changing gyms. She didn't want that to happen because she enjoyed the private moments with Nate after their workouts. One summer evening, when their twins were staying at their grandmother's, Simon unexpectedly decided to hit the gym after work. He had no idea that Nastia was also there, and the sight that awaited him struck him to his core. From the far corner of the gym, he saw his wife with Nate, engaged in a moment of intimate closeness. This sight left him bewildered and hurt, especially after Nastia had assured him that their sessions with Nate had ended when Lana returned. His curiosity gnawed at him, and Simon quietly followed them. He didn't want to confront her directly just yet, but he couldn't shake the unsettling feeling in his gut. As he trailed behind, he watched them slip into the coach's locker room. For a moment, he paused, unsure if he should continue, but something inside urged him forward. Hesitantly, he pressed his ear against the thin door. The soft wood allowed him to hear everything with startling clarity, and what he heard made his stomach churn. He realized, with growing dread, that this wasn't just a training session. The sounds spilling from behind the door shattered his trust. He could hear his wife, the woman he loved, being unfaithful with Nate. The unmistakable sounds of their actions filled the air. Overcome with emotion, Simon pulled away from the door, his chest tight with disbelief. He decided to wait, barely able to keep his composure, until it was over. Eventually, the door opened. Nastia stood in the doorway, her face flushed, her hair disheveled. Nate lingered behind her, equally affected. When she saw Simon, she froze. "Simon, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tinged with confusion. Simon's voice was cold as he responded, "Just passing by. I came to watch my wife in action, but it seems things went a bit off course." The tension in the room thickened as Nate, realizing the gravity of the situation, stepped back, suddenly aware of the mess he had created but unwilling to own up to it. Simon's anger flared, and he shot a question at Nate. "So, how was your day with my wife? Enjoy it?" By now, onlookers had started to take notice, their eyes wide as the drama unfolded before them. Nastia looked as though she might collapse from the weight of the situation, pleading with Simon to keep calm and avoid making a scene. But Simon's fury was overwhelming. His eyes burned with anger as he spat on the floor in front of her, and without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving the scene of his wife's betrayal behind him. Tears streaming down her face, Nastia rushed after Simon, begging him to wait. "We'll talk at home," he called over his shoulder, walking briskly away. Nastia, overwhelmed by the weight of her actions, cried uncontrollably. The prospect of returning to the room where everyone had witnessed her betrayal gnawed at her. She dreaded the thought of their stares, the whispers that would surely follow, and the shame that threatened to swallow her whole. When she finally arrived home, Simon was already there, his anger palpable. Her belongings were packed and waiting by the door. Simon had no interest in hearing her apologies or excuses. He was livid, so furious that it seemed as though his anger might boil over. Nastia had never seen him this enraged. "There's no excuse for what you've done," he said, his voice cold and unforgiving. "I can't forgive you. I'll only speak to you for the sake of the children, but the divorce proceedings start immediately." Nastia tried to reason with him, her voice shaking as she pleaded for another chance. But Simon remained unmoved, cutting her from his life with finality. He gave her a few hours to pack the rest of her things and leave. Years passed after the divorce. Simon, now healed from the wounds of his past, met a kind woman who brought joy and peace into his life. Nastia no longer had a place in his future. After the breakup, she had left the gym, losing track of Simon entirely. But in time, she found another partner, a man who, at first, seemed like a fresh start. However, her new relationship quickly turned toxic. He proved to be an ordinary domestic abuser, making her life a constant nightmare. His mistreatment escalated until it became unbearable, and Nastia realized she had to get out. In a rush, she packed her things and fled, seeking refuge with a friend in a distant city. But in the end, her hasty decisions cost her everything. She had to rebuild her life from the ground up, always acting on impulse, chasing immediate desires without considering the long-term consequences. She now found herself paying the price. Her reflections on her past mistakes were inevitable, but the true weight of her choices hit her only when she found herself alone with her children, homeless, helpless, and with no support.